Welcome back, travel friends. So, have I ever mentioned that time a hurricane shut down the resort I was staying at? Or the time my flight was rerouted and then canceled, so we had to spend the night in a completely different city and miss our connection to Scotland, which means we missed 2 full days of our trip? Oh, on the same trip, our luggage was not only lost, but it was lost for 2 full weeks. Then there was the one time that I had a false COVID test when I was in Mexico that meant I couldn't go anywhere, not even home. And sickness? Well, you've heard of Montezuma's revenge. Yeah, we'll just say it's real, and it has ruined many a well-planned vacation. All these things have personally happened to me while traveling, and that doesn't even touch things like political unrest in the country that you're visiting, or a language barrier that means you can't find your lodging. Also, do you have any idea how often the train system is shut down in Paris? Like, all the time. If you think all these things are unlikely, just think about that one time when the whole world was shut down due to a global pandemic. Sounds crazy, I know, but we all lived it, so we know it's possible. These are things that we as travelers just have to realize are beyond our control. But there are ways to prepare in advance, so chaos, if it does happen, doesn't hit you quite so hard. Before I jump into all those tips, please hit subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and I love the world. When it comes to preparing for things you can't control, it starts when you're doing the planning of your trip, specifically planning your flights. According to one website I looked at, as many as 23% of all domestic flights each day get delayed. If you're thinking, well, I'm flying international, keep in mind that you're starting with a domestic flight, and if you have a transfer, that's domestic too. Do this to avoid trouble. Try booking flights first thing in the morning because they're less likely to be delayed coming from somewhere else. Choose an airline that has multiple flights each day, so if one flight's canceled, they can just put you on the next flight. Try to book flights that are non-stop. They might be more expensive, but you obviously eliminate the risk of missing your connecting flight. And if you do have a connection, make sure that you leave plenty of time to transfer from one flight to the next. Because if you have to switch terminals, for example, it could take you a while. At the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, some gates are more than 2 miles apart. Washington Dulles has the second longest hike between gates, clocking in at 1.62 miles. So you have to leave enough time to get the 1.62 miles to the next gate, maybe go to the bathroom and get on board. There are also some airports that are more likely to have delays than others because they're more crowded. So an inbound airplane might be on the tarmac, but it doesn't have a gate to go to. And trust me, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing your plane on the tarmac, but not being on it. Or watching your connecting plane take off because the flight you were just on was delayed. Keep in mind that if your flight is canceled or if there's any major changes, you're actually eligible by law for a full refund. That's another story. Along the lines of flight trouble, let's talk about lost luggage. In 2023, more than 2.8 million pieces of luggage were lost, damaged, delayed, or stolen, and that's in the United States alone. This happens for a lot of reasons. Your bags could get on the wrong plane. They could miss the transfer even though you make it on that plane. There could be a bag tag misprint, or the luggage handler accidentally types in the wrong destination code, or maybe another passenger takes your bags by mistake because they all look the same. Here's what you can do to avoid having your bags go to the land of lost luggage. First of all, make sure it's properly labeled to begin with. It's better if you have an actual bag tag than the paper ones that you get at the check-in counter that rip off really easily. Include your name, address, and cell phone number at the very least, and put the same information on a card or a piece of paper that you slip into the external pockets of the suitcase, and another one that you put inside the suitcase. Next, take pictures of the bags that you're checking and the contents of those bags. Lay it all out on the bed before you pack. Take a quick picture or video, and then also snap a picture of the suitcase itself right before you check it in. This way, if it goes missing, you'll have those pictures to help you identify your luggage. And if it's never found, you can use the pictures of the contents when you file a claim form. Next, arrive at the airport early enough for the bags to get on the plane. If you're less than 30 minutes before your departure time, your bags probably aren't going to make it on that plane. Also, double check when the flight attendant puts the tag on your bag before it even goes on the conveyor belt to the luggage land. Make sure that you see and confirm the routing information. And a quick word about air tags while we're on the topic. A lot of people say, but I put air tags in my bag in case it gets lost. I do that too. And I can tell you that when your bag gets lost, That AirTag will tell you where it's at, but it's not going to help you get the bag back. Airlines at this point aren't equipped to use AirTag information to locate and return your luggage. I watched on the app as my suitcase with the AirTag in it hopped from LaGuardia Airport to Washington Dulles, back to Sacramento, to somewhere in Canada, then to London, and finally to the small island we were actually on in the middle of the Irish Sea. It was really frustrating. Meanwhile, United Baggage Claim swore my suitcase was still in Newark. So AirTags are cool, but they can provide a false sense of security. The only guaranteed way to make sure your bags don't get lost is not to check any bags. So if you can travel with just a carry-on, honestly, that's the way to go. The next travel scenario that's completely out of your control is the weather. The best thing you can do, obviously, is pack for unexpected weather. Check the forecast regularly. Have indoor activities planned as backups. The other thing that's really important is just to reframe it in your mind and decide if you're going to let a storm ruin your plans or if you're going to have fun anyway. Here are my suggestions. Embrace the storm and have fun. On one family trip I took, there were torrential downpours on the one and only day we were in Oxford, England. So we resigned ourselves to the fact that we were going to get drenched, and we decided to have a fun family photo shoot. Definitely won't forget that one. Another way to handle the weather is to use it as a chance to learn about local cuisine. Make your own pub crawl or find a cooking class. Try and share a few new dishes and ask your server the backstory about them. The obvious one is to explore museums, galleries, go to a movie or a theater performance. I can tell you I've seen more motorcycle museums than I care to admit because of bad weather. You can get upset or you can make the most of it. It's your call. Sort of related to weather is natural disasters. This is a tough one because you're not going to find a forecast for an earthquake. And travel companies like to use the act of God clause. It's a real thing. It's often in the fine print, and it basically says that anything outside of their control, like a natural disaster, they don't owe you anything for. So the best preparation you can have for an act of God is a good travel insurance policy. Also, if you have a travel credit card that you're using, make sure you make all your reservations with that card because sometimes they'll have additional coverage for cancellations and whatnot. So if you do file a claim with an insurance company or with a travel credit card, expect it to be a huge pain. They want documentation for everything. So if your resort closes, make sure you have it in writing. And for that backup hotel that you have to find, keep the receipts for that and any other expenses you have to incur. I've had to file a claim that took almost a year to get paid out for. So don't expect it to be fast or easy, but know that this really is the best way that you can protect yourself in advance. Next up, staying healthy. Topping the list of health-related illnesses that ruin the most vacations is sunburn and heat stroke. So for God's sake, wear sunscreen, take a hat, dress accordingly. If you're going on an outdoorsy adventure, invest in insect repellent. Mosquitoes, ticks, and other bugs that bite can transmit diseases that you don't want to deal with. If there's any question at all about the water, buy bottled water, bring a travel water purification device, or bring tablets to purify the water. Finally, pack your own first aid kit. Include things like ibuprofen, acetaminophen for pain or fevers, Benadryl for allergic reactions, and Pepto for stomach issues. Depending on where you're going, political unrest can be a concern as well. Here's what you need to know about that. Be aware in advance of the political climate where you're going and create a contingency plan. Civil unrest can lead to transportation and other essentials being shut down. So you want to make sure that you have a plan for evacuating if you need to. Tell people where you're going. Don't keep it a secret. This is always a good idea, but especially if you're going to a country where there's any kind of concern. Pay attention to U.S. State Department's travel warnings. You can enroll in the State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program online before you even go, and this will let the State Department know when and where you'll be traveling. You can also check in with the U.S. Embassy when you arrive at your destination, if there is one there. If unrest breaks out when you're there, keep a low profile. Tourists have a way of standing out in a crowd, and that's not a good thing. Never photograph or participate in a demonstration. It can be highly illegal in some places. So these are the most common uncontrollable roadblocks that come up when people vacation, but a really quick look at a couple others. To avoid a language barrier landing you somewhere unexpected, download a translation app in advance and make sure you learn some of the essential basic phrases and the cultural norms in the local language. For service disruptions like a train delay or closed tourist attraction, just be patient and pivot. I was in Belfast for one day a few years ago, and it happened to be the day of their international marathon, so everything, including the tour that I had already booked, was shut down. I got a refund for the tour, we checked out the marathon route, and then we headed to our next stop a little bit earlier than we had planned. Missed Belfast, but what can you do? For currency issues, it's always a great idea to have an international credit card that's not going to charge you exchange fees. And at the same time, don't rely on it exclusively. Make sure you have some of the local currency on hand. In short, there are so many things outside of our control when we travel, and I think that's kind of part of the adventure. If I could share one biggest piece of advice, I'd say be flexible. Be willing to change the plan because of a flight delay or a train strike that may result in something fun and unexpected that you wouldn't have otherwise done. So like anything else, you can let it ruin your vacation or you can let it guide you to the next adventure, hopefully a little more prepared. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, tell me where you're headed next. I'd love to hear, but for now, ciao friends.